occasions. It doesn't always lie to you because, fear serves a really good purpose. If we didn't have a fear of snakes, for example, we'd probably pick up the poisonous ones, they'd bite us, and we'd be out of here. If we didn't have a fear of getting hurt, we might do unsafe things. So fear has a really good purpose in our life, like most emotions do. However, most of us elevate fear to the point where it's controlling what's going on for us and stopping us from being effective in our life. So most of us have a fear or an anxiety about something. There's a big variety of what we could be afraid of, Some people are afraid of speaking in public, some people aren't. So there's a massive variety of what fear or anxiety might show up, but there's no variety in the response to it. So that makes it easiest for us to talk to. What fear does, or anxiety, or any of the versions of fear that you might experience, is it makes us uncomfortable. And the problem with that is once we get uncomfortable, we're overcome by the desire to make the discomfort go away. In other words, when I'm uncomfortable, when I'm anxious, when I'm worried, when I'm concerned, that takes over. My thinking processes don't matter so much now. I just want this feeling to go away because it's so dominant and because I don't know what to do with it and because I can't make it go away. Then what I do is I rely on substances or activities which will make it go away. That's called mood altering in our language, and basically what it means is I decide without thinking that I can't handle feeling like this anymore, so I'm going to do something that's going to change it, to alter my mood, so to speak. And that might be that I might drink, I might work, I might overwork, I might eat, I might get onto Facebook and distract myself, I might go shopping. There's, once again, a million possibilities that I could get involved with which are going to distract me from the uncomfortable feeling. Basically, the uncomfortable feeling goes away. It doesn't mean this uncomfortable feeling is not going to come back. It just means that it goes away for now. So I can drink the problem away, but only until I sober up. And boy, oh boy, there it is again. And of course, that can go on for years and create all sorts of problems. The fundamental problem is that I'm unwilling to sit with the fear or to stick around for long enough to see whether the message of the fear is actually true or not. On most occasions, remember, let's put driving dangerously aside and say you should be afraid of that. There's lots of things that you should be afraid of. They're sensible, they're rationally a good idea. But on most occasions, fear says things like, if you go up there on that stage and you give a speech, you're going to humiliate yourself and you're going to make a fool of yourself and you'll never recover from that and be so embarrassing that it'll be shameful for the rest of your life. So fear whispers in our ear, don't do it, don't do it. So the real message of fear is stay here. So what happens for most people experiencing fear or anxiety is paralysis. So the most obvious demonstration of that or illustration of that, pardon me, is if you take somebody with a fear of heights and put them on the edge of a cliff, what you see is, and they freeze. And the reason they freeze is that fear, if it was a person, would be whispering to them, don't move, don't move. If you move, something will go wrong. And so paralysis is a pretty obvious thing that happens as a consequence of fear. If you look at it in life terms, in life management terms, then in all sorts of other circumstances, that don't move thing means don't do anything. Procrastinate. And so if I've got a difficult conversation to have with maybe my wife or one of my kids or someone who works for me, then fear says, don't do it, put it off. That would be better if you do that next week, next month, next year. Some other time, don't do it now because it could all go wrong. It could turn to custard and, it'll be worse than saying something. So, saying nothing might actually be better. Saying nothing is safer. Just be here and stay with me. And so what happens is that message gets through to us because if I'm thinking about having the ugly conversation with you, but I put it off until next month, then my immediate discomfort goes away. And that's what I want more than anything else, is because I don't know how to handle that. We are not good at being comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is actually a skill we need to use. By the way, the only way you can learn it is to do it. I can't teach it to you, but you can teach it to you. So what happens is we have this overwhelming desire to make the uncomfortable feeling go away because fear is whispering in our ear that if we do nothing, that'll make it go away. And because we don't know what to do, that's what we do. So what happens is I don't go up and give the speech. Does that mean the fear of embarrassing myself in public goes away? Absolutely not. It lingers at a low level. So for the next 20 years, I get the fear of speaking in public at 1 out of 10 instead of the 9 or 10 out of 10 that I would get if I was actually willing to contemplate going up on stage. So you tell me, what's going to do you the most damage? What's going to create the most pain? 1 out of 10 for 20 years or 9 out of 10 for an hour? So what most of us do is avoid the thing that we need to do. You know, I've got a client who cannot go out in public. And so what he does is he stays in his house all day. He's got deliveries from Coles and Woolies. All the things that he needs that are not groceries get delivered as well. There's no need to go outside. He gets other people to take his kids to school and pick them up and bring them home, all that sort of stuff. Basically, nobody knows that he's got this fear of going outside. What he's doing is he's making the fear of going outside go away by not going outside. What he actually needs to do is slowly and gently, without terrorising himself, work himself out to going into the front yard, and from the front yard out onto the street, and from the street maybe down to the shops or whatever it is. So at his own pace, if he was able to work his way up to it, at some point he would conquer the fear. The consequences of conquering the fear is that his self-esteem will be elevated because he did the thing that he thought that he could not do. That person's life would change because of what he did, not because of the advice I gave him. So as his coach, you know, he's going to come to me and say, wow, I couldn't have done it without you. Well, he could have done it without me because he did do it without me. It wasn't me holding his hand when he went out there. He actually came to the point where he realised the necessity, and so as he realised the necessity, figured out, okay, what's the strategy? Small bites at a time, and away he went. He has a massive victory, but he thinks it's the coach. When in actual fact, the coach was the inspiration, the idea, the cajoling, the encouragement, all of those sort of things, but the doing, and you'll find that yourself. All of the victories, the place where you overcome you, the point where you do what you thought you could not do is a point of massive personal victory. That's what floats human beings' boats. We actually don't get excited about paying off the mortgage. Sure we do, but not to the level where, you know, if I do the thing I thought I couldn't do, speaking in public or taking on a new role or building a new relationship or whatever it is, when I do the thing that I thought I could not do, the jollies for me are absolutely through the roof. The reward is way beyond the effort. So what do? Well, I've got a bit of a strategy. There are 3 steps in it that I think you'll find will work for you. The first is to come to the realisation that this fear needs to be nailed. That the longer you put it off, the more difficult it will be. Not because it's going to be more difficult to do whenever you go and do it. It's going to be about the same amount of difficult. It'll be, if you say it's going to be 7 out of 10 difficult, well, it's going to be 7 whether you do it today or do it next year. The difference is the 1 out of 10 that you experience every day between now and next year. So get on with it, understanding that you need to. So step 1 is understanding that you need to do something that is in your best interest to do this thing so that it expands your horizon and you have an elevation of self-respect to do that. Number 2 is figure out, okay, what is the thing that I don't want to do? What is something that I don't want to do that I should do just because I don't want to do that? Now, I'm not talking about parachuting and bungee jumping. There's lots of other low-level skills that you can do. Number 2 is you can confront that fear. In other words, my client I was just talking about who says that, you know, I can't go out in public. Sure enough, that's a description, but I say to him, what is the truth about this? Is it true that you can't do it? You know, he says, I can't go out there. I say, okay, fine, that's your experience right now, but tell me the truth. Is it true that you cannot go out there? He goes, no, that's not true. That's just what I feel. I go, okay, well, you can feel that and still go out there. He goes, oh, I never thought of that. I say, well, the fear's the same. The fear of doing it in here or going out there, the fear's the same. So you're just changing where you're standing whilst you're experiencing the fear. But is it true that you can't do it? Confront it. Not by smashing it, not by opposing it, by asking if it's true. And then number 3 is be present to it. In other words, be present to the feeling and be present to the truth of the circumstances. The reality is, could you go and stand out in the front yard right now? Yes, I could. I'd be afraid, but I could. Okay, good. Not can you. We know you can't. Could you? Yes, you could. You could actually put one foot in front of the other and you could end up there. if necessary. If you need me to because your legs go wobbly, I'll hold your hand, I'll carry you, I'll put you in a wheelbarrow and push you out there. We'll get you there. But the reality is, could you? And the answer is yes. So when you look at that, then number 3 is being present to that. So the guy gets himself in the front yard. I go with him. I make him do it by himself and I follow him out. And then I say to him, so tell me what you're feeling. He said, I am just, like crazy, shaking mad. This is awful. I said, okay, good. Tell me more about it. He goes, what do you mean more about it? I say, where does it live in your body? What is it hot? Is it cold? Are you shaking? What? Tell me. And he describes the sensations in his body and realises they're separate to him. The real him is inside observing these things and that he's actually okay. That's what you get when you turn up and you be present to something. You'll have seen people in your life do things that they're petrified to do. It just means they're shaking or they're sweating or they're doing, but they're getting on with it. So courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what is the right thing to do despite in the presence of fear. So that's being present. What are these things? Number 1, do something that you don't want to do because you don't want to do it. Rather than pandering to the child within you who says, let's not do anything scary, I'm saying be the parent. Take yourself to the things that you don't want to do because you don't want to do them, but pick them. You don't have to dive in the deep end of the swimming pool anytime soon. So number 1, do something because it's in your best interest. Number 2, do something because you don't want to do it. Number 3, confront the fear by asking if it's true. And number 4, be present to whatever the feelings are. Because that guy that I'm talking about discovered that he was actually okay in the front yard. On the very same day, he took himself out onto the street. Had exactly the same experiences, petrified, shaking, sweating, hot, all that sort of stuff. But was able to be present to it and it kind of dissipated. On the same day, he took himself down the street. He wasn't actually able to go to the mall and all the shops and the hundreds of people. That happened later. But, progress is progress. So what are the 3 things? There are actually 4. Decide that you need to do something. Number 2, do something that you don't want to do. Number 3, confront the fear and ask if it's true. Number 4, be present to it. Allow the feelings to be there and they will dissipate. That's really something for you to get on with. Your life will change.